Welcome back. To what extent is the Yemeni crisis a proxy war? Joining me to discuss this from London is political analyst Catherine Shakdam. Catherine, thanks for joining us. The one view we have of this war is that it pits Saudi Arabia against Iran, Saudi Arabia and a group of countries against Iran. Another view is that this is a war between the two main branches of Islam. On the one hand, the Sunnis, led by Saudi Arabia, against the Shias, led by Iran. Is that what it is?
I don't think it is. I don't think it's either of those options. And I think that, again, just limiting it to a Shia-Sunni divide, or again a proxy war, pitting Saudi Arabia against Iran is very reductive, and really take away from what the Yemeni are trying to achieve, which is essentially political self-determination. What they're trying to do is, install a working civil state and democracy, and they're basically trying to claim political emancipation. And the Saudi have attacked unilaterally the Yemenis. So, I don't think that it is an attack on Iran. It's clearly an attack against the Yemeni people and their desire to establish a working, functioning, modern democracy south of Saudi Arabia, which I would like to remind everyone is a violent theocracy. And I don't think it's anything else. And it's really just a war, one superpower versus the poorest country in the peninsula, really.
Another view is that this is a Yemeni civil war.
Well, I mean, of course, now it has devolved into something more complex, and we have factions within Yemen who are indeed fighting against each other. But again, I would say that it has been engineered a lot, and very much like 2011 Arab Spring movement was taken over by the Muslim Brotherhood in Yemen, and kind of angled in a way that would see the Muslim Brotherhood become, the only political, super party of Yemen. The same thing is happening again. I mean, the Saudi have managed to use, factions within Yemen who are, in competition with each other to kind of serve their own goal in Yemen. So to say that it is a civil war, not really. But yes, now it could actually devolve into one, and only because the Saudi have pushed it this way, and they have held this narrative and carried this narrative that you have North versus South, Shia versus Sunni, which is very dangerous because they're creating tension which didn't exist before, and we could find ourselves in a situation very, very similar to that of Syria or even Iraq. And I don't think it's serving anyone, and especially not the Yemeni people.
Saudi Arabia has been bombing targets in Yemen from the air. We now have ground forces, other countries involved in this, invading Yemen. What does the Saudi-led coalition hope to achieve in Yemen?
Well, if you look at how this whole war started back in March 25th, the Saudi have been intent on destroying all military capacity, and that has meant heavy military targets, military outposts and bases. Everything has been laid to waste. And I think that it says a lot about what it is that they're trying to achieve. And I think that essentially they are trying to destroy Yemen military capacity. And I think that this is very dangerous because if they do not have the apparatus to defend themselves, then how can we expect them to fight Al-Qaeda, for example, or other radical groups such as ISIS, which we know now have actually taken grab of Yemen and have established different cells. So I think that was one of the target that they were trying to achieve. The second thing, I think they were really trying to destroy all state institutions, and only because they wanted to make sure that whoever would come back in power during the reconstruction of Yemen would be their vassal, and will make sure that they are completely dependent on Riyadh for aid money, and to be able to sustain the state and all civil institutions. And I think that is deplorable because the United Nations have stood by while war crimes have been committed, schools have been targeted, hospitals have been targeted, civilian population have been targeted. It has actually been documented by Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International quite extensively, and yet nothing has been done.
Is this a legal war?
No, it's not. And I would say that even though they have tried to frame it as if it was, arguing that former President Hadi asked for it. President Hadi doesn't have legitimacy constitutionally because he once resigned, and second of all, his mandate was only for 2 years. He was elected in 2014. So however you want to look at it, he's not president of Yemen anymore. So that's one thing. Second of all, a country cannot declare war against another when this other has done nothing wrong, to actually threaten their border. Because this is the kind of thing that came out of Riyadh. They were saying it was a preemptive war. But again, this is not legal, and international doesn't recognize preemptive strikes. This is not Minority Report. You can't simply just assume that a country would maybe attack you and then decide to strike first. It doesn't work this way, thank God. And I think that the UN needs to really step up the plate here and try to, make all those parties go back to the negotiating table and agree for a real truce and agree to, let the political process take its course.
And no doubt, if the UN is to step up to the plate, as you point out, the United States will have to play some role in that. What is the current US role in this?
Well, I think that the US has taken, they often talking about leading from behind, and I think that's what they've been doing. They've been using the Saudi to basically run this war and run away with it. And they have almost, I would say, diplomatic deniability because, they have sold all those weapons to the Saudi, including cluster bombs, by the way, which are illegal. And they have been used at length. And they are trying to say that they want all those parties to go back and discuss the situation. But they keep pushing for war anyway from under the table, and I think it is it only proves that there are a lot of double standards. And if Russia, for example, was in whatever way involved in Yemen, I think they would get a lot of political heat and a lot of political bashing. And yet nothing happens when the US is doing it. This has happened in Syria and in Iraq time and time again when we see foreign intervention being justified just because a superpower is leading it. And we can't keep condoning, this narrative where we have the very powerful against the very poor, and the very poor don't have a voice. It's not how international is supposed to work. It's supposed to work for everyone. And I think that a lot of the things that we're seeing today is basically, a repeat of Syria, a repeat of Afghanistan, of all those times where, the Americans were allowed, because they are simply American, to do whatever they wanted. And now we can see other countries now following, on their footsteps. And committing war crimes and illegal war in the name of their own political agenda.
I want to put to you another analysis that came from the Brookings Institution here in Washington. It was written by Kenneth Pollack, who's a noted analyst, and he says that the Saudi-led intervention is a dangerous escalation that is unlikely to improve the situation in Yemen and risks the stability of Saudi Arabia in the medium to long term. He also says the Iranian role in this conflict is greatly exaggerated. Do you agree?
I agree 100%. And I would say that if you look now at what is happening actually inside Saudi Arabia, and I mean, if you look just in August, we had a terror attack in the province of Asir, which is at the south of Saudi Arabia and north of Yemen. It really goes to show that, while Saudi Arabia is waging this war against Yemen, its own country is actually falling apart from the inside, and only because, again, they are using, radical elements and funding radicalism abroad, and this is basically coming home and coming to bite them. And this is very dangerous because they're not realizing by engineering violence in the region, of course, it's going to come home. Violence doesn't know any borders, and radical don't know any borders. And I think that it is actually quite a pity for the Middle East because we had a chance with Yemen back in 2011 to actually have a real democratic conversation.
Catherine Shakdam, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
And that is it for this edition of The Heat. We'd love to hear from you, so please send us your questions, comments, and story ideas to theheat@cctv-america.com. And we'd like to continue the conversation on social media. Give us your thoughts and comments on our Facebook page. You'll find that at CCTV America. I'm Arnold Naidu in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us.